This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage.
Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here of BuckeyeScoop.com, back with another edition of Around the Oval presented by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. It's Rutgers week here for Ohio State, week 3 of the Big Ten season. The Scarlet Knights will be traveling to Columbus this Saturday for a primetime matchup, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Big Ten Network. And per your request, I mean, I don't even know who else we could bring on the show. We have the legendary message board poster, Rutgers fan extraordinaire, RutgersAl, here with us today on Around the Oval. Al, how are you? And thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Great to be with you.
Absolutely.
Doing great.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, for those who don't know, I also write for the Knight Report, which is the Rutgers affiliate in the Rivals Network, and Al is a member of that board. So, you know, we've had some nice, little bit of nice banter back and forth, you know, over the last year or so since I've been there. So, really happy to have him on. And, you know, Al, you are known, you know, I've been on 24/7 Sports writing for Bucknuts. I'm now at Rivals with Rutgers. I was with Ohio State for a little bit too. I'm at an independent site for Ohio State right now, and everyone seems to know you. Your infamous, you know, Rutgers season predictions, game-by-game predictions. I mean, just tell us a little bit. How did you get into kind of this message board world, and how did you rise to legendary status?
So I graduated from Rutgers in 95. I started posting in 96 about Rutgers football. And I noticed that everybody was just super negative about the team and its prospects because at the time, Rutgers just didn't give a serious effort, you know, into the football program, you know? So I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna just look at the positive side of things and just be a positive influence upon the program and its prospects, you know, to basically lift everybody up and, you know, try to hopefully give us hope, you know, for our fan base because everybody else is negative. So my positivity stuck out, you know, because I was one of the few people to have a positive spin on Rutgers' situation. And that's why I stuck out, you know, because even now on the main board, I'm one of the few on the Rivals main board, that is, I'm one of the few positive Rutgers people there. So that's why everybody, you know, latches on to me as a, you know, as a positive Rutgers influence. And that's how I achieved my notoriety.
That's awesome. I mean, listen, I've been doing this since 2008. I've probably been reading message boards, yeah, since maybe like 2003, maybe a little earlier than that. And so I've seen, trust me, like, listen, Ohio State, you know, Rutgers fans would love to have the success Ohio State's had the last 20 years or so. And Ohio State can win a game against Nebraska 52-17, and there's still plenty of people on the board. The running backs aren't good. The defensive line doesn't look like it's getting any push. So I appreciate, you know, as a board mod and a staff writer, you know, seeing a fan bring out the positives and not necessarily focusing on the negatives. So that's awesome. And you guys out here in Jersey, I mean, I'm in Jersey. Looks like basically, I'm thinking you're in the city based on your background there.
Yes, that's correct. I live right next to the Hudson River.
Very nice. Yeah, I was just in Hoboken, so I was right across from you. Now I'm in the suburbs, but yeah, I think you guys have a lot to be excited about. Let's not sugarcoat things. The Chris Ash era was not a good one for Rutgers. A little bit of a surprise, I think, to us Ohio State fans who saw a lot of success with him as the defensive coordinator, but it wasn't a good one. And now Greg Schiano is back on the banks after stints, you know, leaving for the NFL with Tampa Bay. He then was at Ohio State as our defensive coordinator here in Columbus. And then, you know, he didn't, you know, get retained by Ryan Day, took a year off, and now is back as Rutgers head coach. Tell us, what was was Schiano the guy you wanted to come back and run the program? Did you want someone else? And once he was hired, what was your reaction?
Absolutely. For me, there was nobody but Schiano. If Schiano hadn't been hired, I might have as very well have, you know, kind of like reduced my support of the program, because for me there was no, you know, there's no other person but Schiano. Just to give you a little bit more insight into myself, I did go to the University of Miami for my MBA, And that's my classmate was Mario Cristobal, who at the time was on staff for the Hurricanes, and he was a graduate assistant. So he provided me with a little more insight about Schiano, and subsequently Schiano was hired by Rutgers. So that's why I had a little more insight into Schiano as to, how good of a coach he is, how great a recruiter he was, and how he was very thorough, had exceptional interpersonal skills, had great leadership, and so that's what made me very optimistic about Schiano, even in when he was first hired in the year 2001. So for me, even from 2001 and also this past year, there was just nobody else but Schiano who could come in, roll up his sleeves, and get the job done. Now we all, we have championship aspirations, but let's face it, we're far away from, being a champion. But at least Schiano is the one guy who can come in, recruit his tail off, basically work hard, work his staff hard, develop the players, build the program, and basically inculcate a strong work ethic in the players so that they could be the best they can be. And that's pretty much what the goal is, I think, this year. This year I see as a foundational system, pretty much rebuilding the program, putting good habits, making sure the players have good habits, and making sure they're getting the most out of their ability. And in the upcoming years, hopefully we'll be able to do more. But this year, this is a foundational learning season, and then let's see where we are after this season. I'm hopeful for, a good result, but the main thing is just to minimize mistakes and just do the best you can. I mean, that's my expectations for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think people don't realize it. It takes, not anyone could take that job and do well. And Greg understands New Jersey. He understands the relationships with the high school coaches that are needed here in this area in New York City, in the surrounding states. He understands how to work the administration and board of trustees and things like that. And there wasn't many other people who I thought could have come in that were actually, attainable, that could have come in and at least hopefully bring Rutgers back to respectability, if nothing else. And I think he's already starting to do that. I mean, I'm personally seeing some differences from the team already. You heard about it all offseason with the culture from recruits and things like that. And now opening week, they come out, they go to East Lansing, and they pretty much dominated Michigan State. 7 turnovers. They were up 38-20 late. A late touchdown cut that game to 11. But they were, 14-point underdogs. I took the money line. I was happy. I thought Rutgers, I know they had a bone to pick with Michigan State, and I knew Greg really wanted to win that game. But what was your reaction seeing that opening week win after Rutgers hadn't won a Big Ten game in over 2 years? And how big was it for the program?
I was elated. I was ecstatic. I think this was a credibility-inducing program-building win because I felt so happy for the players who sacrificed and worked so hard in the off season, to get to this result. Because everybody, just sees what happens on game day, but there's a lot of backstage preparation that you have to get to that place, So, and I realized, when I went to another school, Miami, like I mentioned previously, it's what you do in the off season, which really prepares you for your success during the season. And I felt that Schiano was the one guy who can do it. If you look at the game tape, you'll see, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like the coaching is exponentially better. Our scheme is better suited to the talent. We're more aggressive on offense and defense. We're giving 60 minutes of effort. The team is better conditioned, stronger, and more mature. And just in both the Michigan State and the Indiana games, I saw linebackers fighting off blocks and making a play. And I was ready to cry because, to be honest, it was a long time since I've seen that at Rutgers. So, we're not where we want to be, but we are making positive progress. And, I think we have a chance to beat anyone on any given day, and that's all I can ask for at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you've seen 2 games. There's 6 more regular season games and that one, kind of matchup week. when the Big Ten championships is. So 7 more games. What's your outlook on the rest of the season after seeing this 2-game sample size from Rutgers? What's your I guess predicted record for this program in year 1 of the Schiano 2.0 era?
Yeah, so since we're limited to 9 games, right? As long as I think we've got a good chance for being 4-5 or 3-6. I think that's pretty much where I feel comfortable at. If we can do better, that would be amazing. But I think our upside is probably either get 4 or 5 wins, and that would be just a tremendous, amazing accomplishment for this program. Will I be disappointed if we get only 3 or 4 wins? Absolutely not. Considering where we've been, where we were like totally non-competitive last year, we got blown out by just about every good and bad program last year. So after, last year's nadir, the Michigan State win was a much needed elixir for all our hopes and aspirations. And as long as we continue to play hard, give good effort, and show a spark, and that's what I see in this team. At least we have a spark, that makes the team exciting to watch. We may not win every game, but at least we're exciting to watch. I love watching Coach Gleason's schemes because they're so creative, especially in the Michigan State game where he seems to get to the balls to the playmakers, and allows them to make a play. So and that's all I can ask for: good coaching, good work ethic, and let's do our best on game day. And that's pretty much what I'm looking for, and why I'm so happy for the rest of our prospects of the season.
Yeah, definitely. So last thing I want to talk to you about is this week's game. Rutgers travels to Ohio State. Last year, actually, surprisingly, with Nunzio as head coach, I think they played Ohio State the best they had in a few years. I think they put up 21 points or so. It was like 56-21, I think. But it still has been tough sledding for Rutgers against Ohio State. I don't think they've scored a touchdown in their last 2 trips to Columbus. Before we get into what Rutgers needs to do to win the game, what are, for Ohio State fans watching, what are the strengths? What would you say if I had to say one strength and one weakness of the team this year? What is it for Rutgers?
I'd say our biggest strength is probably our defensive line as a unit and our ability to stop the run, because I felt we've done a great job for that against Indiana and Michigan State. We held Indiana to 109 rushing yards, and we held Michigan State to a lot fewer than that. Number 99, Michael Dumfor, is really a force in the middle, and he's been able to collapse the line on each series, that he's in. Number 50, Julius Turner, has been able to do the same from the cock nose position. And the rest of the linemen are very strong. Number 58, Mohamed Toure, had a number of sacks against Michigan State. So I really love our front 7. In the linebacking core, whom I should mention is number 8, Tyshawn Fogg, as well as number 3, Olakunle Fantukesi, and number 17, Dion Jennings. And these guys have been shown an ability to get off blocks, make a play, have shown much, much better instincts than in previous years. So I think we have a front 7 that can compete with the best of the Big Ten. So very happy with their development. The secondary is also pretty strong, I'd say. The cornerbacks are very good in pass coverage. The safeties are much better in run cover against the run, and they're a little bit weaker against the pass. But overall, I'm very confident in the performance of our defense and look for them to get better during the course of the season. I'd say our weakest unit is probably the offensive line. So maybe weak is not the right adjective, but I would say that they're a work in progress, because they did do reasonably well against Michigan State, where we were able to run the ball and pass the ball enough. But we did struggle against Indiana. We let off a number of sacks, and we weren't able to run the ball as well as we wanted to. So I'm hopeful that Coach Gleason will continue to implement the schemes that will help us see more success offensively. But I'd say the offensive line is definitely a work in progress. Our best skill player is Aaron Cruikshank, who was a Wisconsin transfer, and he had a run back against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. So I would say he's probably our biggest playmaker. Isaiah Pacheco is our best running back, and he's our, our number one running back, and he's able to go. He has the potential to go off, in any game for over 100 yards. He had a big run against Michigan last year. So, between Pacheco, Cruikshank, and our last playmaker is quarterback Noah Vedrell. He has the ability to make plays with both his arm and his legs. So, I think with these three guys, Rutgers has the potential to beat anybody on any given day. So let's go out there and give it our best. Now, Ohio State is definitely, a league far higher than what, our level. I watched them destroy Penn State. So I don't think we're, ready to, beat an Ohio State, but let's give it our best shot and see what happens. In order for us to do so, I think we'd need to run the ball, stop the run, and minimize our turnovers, and hopefully turn the ball over from Ohio State. So we really need Ohio State to play with less discipline. That might give us a chance. But other than that, this is going to be tough sledding for us. We would need Aaron Cruikshank to have a Rondale Moore type of game, with over 100 yards receiving, which is, easier said than done. We'd need Isaiah Pacheco to run for well over 100 yards, which once again is easier said than done. But, I just want us to go out there, have fun, and do our best, because I feel like we're playing with house money. No one's expecting us to win this game. So let's play loose, play fast, and play smart. And that's really all I'm looking for against Ohio State. But Ohio State, from what I've seen, they're the best team in the country. They really have no weaknesses as far as I'm concerned. They went out, they destroyed Nebraska, they destroyed Penn State. So, let's give it our best shot and see what we can do.
Absolutely. I think Coach Schiano should bring you into the locker room this weekend to give the pregame talk. You had me believing Rutgers is not here today. No, that was a great breakdown. I think the last thing we want to ask you before we take a little break and then bring on Richie Schnyderite, the publisher of the Knight Report, is how does this game play out, and what is your final score prediction?
Okay, so this game for me is a benchmark game because, we're trying to measure ourselves against Ohio State and see how much progress we've made. I think we've got, as long as we can minimize our mistakes, we can make it competitive at least for a half. At least that's my hope. But I think Ohio State's superior depth and talent will win over in the end. Very, impressed with Jonathan Fields, who I think should be a top 5 draft pick. Really impressed with Chris Olave. And for me, Ohio State is just like a college football all-star team. So we really got our work cut out for us. But you know what? We're going to go out there, give it our best shot, and let the chips fall where they may. But ultimately, I think this, to me, has a feeling of like a 56-17 decisively in favor of Ohio State. But we're going to give it our best shot.
Love to hear it, Al. We got RutgersAl here on the Around the Oval podcast, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. We're going to take a quick break after this and then bring on Richie Schnyderite to give his analysis of the game this weekend and everything you need to know about the Scarlet Knights. Al, thanks for joining us. Stay safe and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you very much. Wish you the same.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.
Welcome back, Ohio State fans. We're here after the break. We just had the legendary RutgersAl on talking Ohio State, Rutgers. It's Rutgers week for the Buckeyes. The Scarlet Knights will travel to Columbus for a primetime game on Big Ten Network, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But for part two of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage, we bring over a publisher from the Knight Report, the Rutgers affiliate of the Rivals Network, the place where I handle my Rutgers business. We have the publisher Richie Schnyderite here with us to talk and break down Rutgers in a little bit more detail maybe than Al did, or with some, I guess I would say, a more unique insight. Richie, thanks for joining the show, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Always great to be here. Great talking with you. Great talking Rutgers, and let's get right to it.
Cool, man. Well, I think the first thing everyone wants to talk about with Rutgers is Greg Schiano. Obviously, that was an interesting coaching search hire, but I think they got the right guy. He got hired in December. He didn't have much time to recruit, but he did finish the class off pretty strong, I think, versus where it was. And then, he got kind of handcuffed again in the sense that he wasn't able to have spring ball due to everything shutting down with COVID-19. He wasn't able to recruit through the spring. Fall camp was kind of weird, especially for Rutgers with the situation and the outbreak that they had. They had to shut things down for a while. And obviously, I would say New Jersey's probably a little bit more conservative than some of those Midwest states, which we could get into. That's a whole different discussion. But Rutgers, I think, my point is Greg Schiano faced a ton of different challenges becoming the head coach of Rutgers. I guess my question for you is, with Schiano back, how do you think, what are the early returns? What's your impression of him thus far in Schiano Era 2.0? And what are your expectations both immediately this season and for the future with him back coaching the Scarlet Knights?
So I guess just starting from the beginning, Schiano came in, it's weird because is there really a better candidate for Rutgers football than Greg Schiano? Has anyone ever got them to become a good program before? No. Pretty much the answer is actually clearly no. He had them in the top 10 at one point when he was first tenure. Now he's back. He claims he's learned a lot from Urban Meyer in particular. He claims he's learned a lot from his NFL experience, even though it was a short, I think it was a season and a half, 2 seasons, whatever it was. Recruiting wise, going back to recruiting a little bit, he seems like he's a completely different recruiter. I know he was a good recruiter previously at Rutgers, but now he's just taken that to another level. He came in, almost no one expected him to dominate the top 10 in New Jersey. And that's always the case for Rutgers. You want to get those Jersey kids, you want to get them to stay home. He's got, I want to say right now, 5 or 6 of our top 10 in the state this year, I believe. But whatever it is, he's dominated recruiting so far. He's a little bit different as a head coach. He's a little less hands-on when it comes to offense. He's kind of let his new offensive coordinator, Sean Gleason, take control of that. He also on the top of all this, he convinced Rutgers to somehow splurge when it comes to football, and that was the number one thing they needed to do. They needed to start investing in the program. They're going to have a new indoor practice facility in the next couple of years. They just going back to Sean Gleason, that was the highest paid coordinator hire in Rutgers football history. Trying to think, the brand new practice facility. They have the outdoor practice facility. They're improving the stadium. They improved the locker room. Not many people can convince Rutgers to spend money on the program, but he managed to do it. He managed to get the governors on board with the program. He's got politicians on his side. He's got boosters on his side. Overall, I just, end of the day, like I said, there's not a better candidate for Rutgers football than Greg Schiano. So he was the man for the job, and it looks like he's actually going to start trending upward for the Rutgers program.
Yeah, you talked about some of the things that he's come in and done already. I know that getting investment in the program was kind of mandatory, and that might have been some of the hang up at first of getting him hired, but he got that through. Now that he's in place and everything like that's taken care of, what are the immediate differences that you have seen, both, I guess, tangible differences, 2 games into the season, and maybe intangible differences, whether it be in the locker room or on the recruiting trail?
He's still that same guy that you guys have probably seen as a Buckeyes defensive coordinator. He's still going to get in your face. He's still going to yell at you. He's going to try to motivate you in any way possible. But like I was saying before, he's a little less hands-on. He lets Sean Gleason run the show for the most part on offense. He'll still make the decisions when it comes down to it, the major decisions, who's starting quarterback, who's starting whatever. But he's just less hands-on, less evasive and all that. There's really not much difference than his first tenure here. It's kind of like he never missed a step and just stepped right back into it. And it's just better program from when he was first year.
Yeah, and I know what he was the first time. I wasn't as into it, but it seems like he carried what he had that period over with the keep chopping and things like that. And he's taken maybe, from what I've seen, I sit on both sides of this. From what I've seen, he's taken definitely some things he's learned from Ohio State and Urban Meyer, and he's brought that into the building from a culture building standpoint. And I think you're seeing what we've seen on the field in 2 games. I think you're seeing a buy-in from the players. And obviously that showed in their opening week win against Michigan State. How big was that game for the program, to get that first Big Ten win in over 2 years in game 1 of his return?
It was absolutely huge. I know Michigan State's not the same program they were originally under D'Antoni. But it was just a big win in general. Like you said, Rutgers hasn't won a Big Ten game in 20-something games. There's no other way to put it other than it's a good momentum builder, especially because Michigan State stole 2 of those top 10 kids that we were talking about before from the state in this 2021 class, in Gino Vandermark and Audric Estime. So there was kind of a little bit of tension between those two staffs, I should say. But just to be able to go out there and pretty much dominate them in all facets of the game, force 7 turnovers against the Spartans, it was just a huge win for the program. And just like I said, it's a momentum builder from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, last week against Indiana, they fell a little bit short, but they were competitive. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't what we're used to seeing under Chris Ash with Rutgers football, where it's over before it even starts. And so I think now 2 game sample size into the season. What are your thoughts? If with COVID, we don't know. We've already seen Wisconsin now cancel 2 games, assuming they do play a 9-game season, the 8 regular season games, and then that 1 kind of postseason game before any potential bowl season. How do you see the rest of the season playing out for Rutgers after a 2-week sample size?
So just want to talk about a little bit of Indiana stuff real quick. Michael Penix is disgustingly good. That offense is ridiculous. Him and Stevie Scott are just a heck of a combo, and it caused a lot of havoc for Rutgers. And that's, for the most part, I think they'll challenge people in the Big Ten East. I'm not going to say they're going to beat Ohio State or anything, but I think they'll put up a challenge and they'll put up a fight. But as for the rest of the season, I think the goal right now is just to show that you're competitive. It really doesn't matter when it's wins or losses for Rutgers at this point. You just want to show that you're not the same old Rutgers. You're not the Chris Ash Rutgers that was getting, I forget what it was, 52-0 last year, or 55-point loss to Michigan, or you don't want to get blown out. As long as you could show improvements in just about, it's weird. So the defense looks good, they're improving. The offense looks good, they're improving. The special teams looks good, improving. As long as you can show those improvements week in and week out, that's all you really can ask for. I personally, I think you know this already, I projected a 2-win season for Scarlet Knights this year. I'm kind of sticking with that at this point. And as long as they can be competitive, I think recruiting will take a nice little jump and they'll go from there.
Yeah, actually, when I saw the new schedule come out, the newest schedule, there's 7 schedules with Big Ten released, I think. But, I had them as a 2-win team with 3-win upside. I thought they would beat Michigan State. I think they can beat Maryland. There's maybe even one other game that they can definitely get in there. So I think they could win 3 games. And that's incredible to me if they're able to do that. I mean, to your point, just showing recruits hey, we are at least now competitive. With you in the fold, we can win some of these games. And then we just keep getting more and more talent. We keep chopping. And, eventually we're a bowl team. Eventually we are Indiana, and we're looking at 8-win seasons. And then from there, you can start to get some of the best in this area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, even, to stay home. And you start to maybe say, maybe we can catch Ohio State one year. Who knows? It's really interesting. But, looking at this team this year, it is an interesting team. I don't think a lot of people know a ton about them. So when, Ohio State fans are watching the game this week, we talk about the Rutgers offense. What are the strengths and weaknesses of that unit? Who are the players to watch?
So the new look offense under Sean Gleason is pretty interesting. I'm sure you've watched a couple of the first 2 games, or even little tidbits and plays and stuff like that. But it's a very fast-paced offense. Sean Gleason tells us all the time he likes to snap the ball every 15 seconds. He wants to just get it going, speed. probably you might be actually the biggest fan of this kid, but the one player to watch is Aaron Cruikshank, slot wide receiver / kick returner. He kind of does it all. He's a speedy wide receiver. He's from Wisconsin transfer from last year. I don't know if he won Rose Bowl MVP in 2019 or 2018, whatever it was, but he did return a kick. He had a kick return for a touchdown in that game. Very fast wide receiver, great player. On top of that, Isaiah Pacheco at running back has future NFL pro written all over him. He kind of runs, I guess Schiano called him this the other day. He runs like a mad bull, like a bull in a china shop type player. He just very good running back, good vision, and just runs with his head down, downhill runner. And on top of that, they have quarterback Noah Vedral, who's also a transfer. He's coming in from Nebraska. He doesn't do anything crazy. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but overall solid mechanics. He'll hit the like tier 1, tier 2, but he kind of tier 3 he's not the best with like that long ball. But he can hit the receivers in stride. He's pretty accurate. It's not, like I said before, it's not your same old Rutgers from last year or even the year before. It's not the same old team that lost to Buffalo, the same old team that's getting blown out. It's an interesting team. They're just fast, I guess. At the end of the day, you can just call them their fast-paced offense, and it's really all I can say from there.
Yeah, I think for me, the weakness and where Rutgers could have trouble is the offensive line against Ohio State or the good teams. I think that's a unit where they struggle. But, Aaron Cruikshank, an Erasmus Hall product. Ohio State fans very familiar with Erasmus Hall. He's got speed. Bo Melton, I think, is maybe the best offensive playmaker. And then, as you mentioned, there are some other pieces there. Pacheco, some of the other running backs in Young and Kayron Adams, an Ohio native, as well as Vedral, who I think, is at least giving them better quarterback play than they've seen the last few years. I don't think he's elite by any means, but if he doesn't turn the ball over, he could put them in position to win a few games this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Rutgers offense faces against what should be their steepest test on Saturday. But I think one unit that probably going to give Ohio State more trouble than what they're used to from Rutgers is the defense. A lot of transfers, Greg Schiano scheme in place. These guys are flying to the ball. They're playing fast. They're creating turnovers. Some familiar names for Buckeye fans: Trey Avery, formerly Kareem Felder, a former Ohio State commit at one point. You have Brendan White, former Ohio State transfer. Michael Dwumfor, former Michigan defensive lineman. There are a few other players in there. Malik Barrow, former Ohio State defensive lineman. So there are some familiar names that Ohio State's going to be playing against. Tell us about this defense. What have you seen from them thus far? What are their strengths? Where are areas where Ohio State can maybe exploit this weekend?
I'd say the biggest area they could exploit is probably that defensive back, the entire secondary, I should say. There's not a lot of depth there. You have, like you said, Kareem Felder / Trey Avery at one corner spot, Avery Young at the other corner spot. And after that, the third corner is Malachi Melton, a true freshman out of Jersey. So it's a little questionable once you get past those first two corners. And then even the safety spots. Christian Idzian, another Erasmus Hall product. He's been solid. He's a little on the shorter side when it comes to safety. I think he's around 5'9", 5'10". But he's been struggling a little bit. And then even Brendan White had his struggles game 2. Game 1, he looked pretty solid. I think he had a fumble recovery and an interception. But game 2, he struggled against that Indiana offense. If you're going to exploit anything, it's going to be that secondary and the depth. They just don't have it there. As far as their strengths, I'd probably say the defensive line is kind of a strength now. They have Malik Barrow, like you mentioned, who's a backup, actually. Mike Tverdov is coming back for his 3rd or 4th year. I can't remember correctly if he redshirted or not. But he's coming back at the defensive end spot. Ellen Loomer's back. He technically declared for the draft and he got drafted and somehow found his way back. It's a little tricky situation there. Michael Dwumfor is one of the best interior pass rushers in the Big Ten. He proved that at Michigan. He could never stay healthy, I think, in the last season and a half. But now that he is, he's looking good. I'm trying to think who else. Julius Turner. He's another undersized guy, but he made some noise game 1. Game 2, he had a little bit of his struggles. But overall, I think Rutgers right now has a number 4 rushing defense in the nation, if I looked at this correctly before. So their rushing defense is phenomenal. It's more or less giving up the big plays still in passing game.
Yeah, I personally love the front 7 of Rutgers. I think their linebackers are pretty good. Tyshawn Fogg, 03, Deion Jennings. I mean, they're all good players, and with that defensive line, that makes them even better. So I think that front 7, I think obviously the game plan is going to be, don't let Ohio State beat you on the ground, make them probably nickel and dime their way to every single score that they get down the field, keep everything in front of you. But, I think Ohio State's passing game is probably the strength of their offense this year. They're still figuring out the running game to some extent. So I think, to your point, that secondary and passing defense versus Ohio State's passing offense is going to be the key on that side of the ball. I think Ohio State, if Ohio State's Ohio State, they should win this game. It's 39-point spread last time I checked this morning. They really, they should probably, I'm probably going to predict something like 49-10, and we'll get to your prediction in a minute. But I think it's probably that's probably a good number. I think if Ohio State is Ohio State, that's the type of game that this could be. I mean, even worse potentially. But from the Rutgers side of things, if they want a chance to pull the upset of all time, I would maybe say, honestly, this would probably be bigger than Appalachian State versus Michigan or anything like that. What does Rutgers need to do, or what needs to happen for Rutgers to win this game?
They take a quick lead and just control the ball as much as you can, and just do not give it up. We saw it last week. They struggled holding on to the ball. They gave up the ball. I want to say they had 3 interceptions thrown. I think there's a fumble or 2 also, but you gotta get that offense going. Number one, got to be able to score points. You're not going to go tit for tat with this Ohio State offense. Justin Fields is ridiculously good. He's going to drive down the field. So the longer you can keep the ball to his hands, the better, I would say. And that's, it's almost impossible to even predict that Rutgers would even have a shot at this game. But like you said, it's going to be probably a 30, 40-point game still.
Yeah. And with that said, last thing here is, how in your mind, how does this game play out, and what's your final score prediction?
I honestly think the first quarter would be more competitive than people think. I think this Rutgers team is not, like I said, it's not the same team that you've seen the past 2 seasons. It's not the same team that almost lost to Liberty last year. Not the same team that almost lost to UMass last year. But I think early on it's going to be competitive. I think the offense is going to show some signs of life. I think they're going to scheme a bunch of trick plays. You're going to see, like Sean Gleason schemed it last week. He had 2 quarterbacks on the field for about like 10 to 12 plays, and it's fun to watch, but it's intriguing. I think you're going to have to trick Ryan Day a little bit and trick that Ohio State defense. Is that going to last all game? Probably not. So then I think Ohio State eventually turns on the Jets, ends up being, I want to say, like a 45-10, 45-13 type of game. I think Rutgers could snag a couple field goals. They have a decent field goal kicker who could probably kick from about 50, 55 out, really. So it's I just don't think they're going to score much at all. It's going to be an ugly game.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I actually do think it's going to be competitive early on. I think there could be some wrinkles that catch Ohio State a little bit off guard. Maybe use Johnny Langan a little bit in quarterback run game or things of that nature, similar to how Nebraska used Luke McCaffrey on a pretty big play early on. I mean, Penn State didn't have success running the quarterback last week, but that has been an Achilles heel for Ohio State. So I think there could be some wrinkles that catch Ohio State off guard, but I think the depth, the talent, everything is just going to be too much in the end for Rutgers. I tend to agree with you. I'll have my final score prediction on Buckeye Scoop on Friday in our staff picks and my Gleitman game day guide column and how I think this game's going to go. I want to do a little bit more research before I put a final stamp on it, but I'm thinking 49-10, something in that range too. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited. This game for me is always fun. Covering Rutgers, covering Ohio State, getting to be on the message boards and see both sides of it. But, I was glad to have you on the show, Richie. Definitely looking forward to our coverage on the Night Report. And, for all you Ohio State fans who do have a rival subscription, definitely be sure to check out the Night Report. Some great stuff this week over there from those guys, hopefully including myself, about this upcoming weekend's game. So Richie, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it, and stay safe.
Yep, no problem. Talk to you soon, Alex.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.